consider the current legislative provisions for bail that are affecting a young offender with mental health, the current healthcare system must be analysed as to how it is dealing with concerns arising from bail conditions. It is important to note that when a suitable place is recommended for children on bail, this isn't possible. Department of Child Protection resources are stretched and at times limited. Children in need of protection take priority, and as a result, children with mental health issues are often excluded. There is also a lack of authorised hospitals that allow mentally ill young offenders to reside while waiting to appear in court. There is limited psychiatric resources available to young people who are on bail or remand in Australia. This results in children with mental health problems spending significant periods of time in custody rather than a medical setting where appropriate intervention is possible. For young people with mental illness who are granted bail, the unstable environment of being on bail awaiting sentencing can prove to exacerbate mental health problems. There needs to be a greater focus on the pathways that the court system can provide to prevent young offenders with mental health from not being provided with proper treatment and falling through the cracks of the healthcare system. This can ultimately lead to more severe mental health issues later in life. Suggestions and recommendations for such include: the sentencing of young offenders throughout Australia involves different youth justice legislation, policies and practices for each state and territory. Despite this difference, the manner in which young offenders are charged and sentenced and the types of legal orders available to the courts are relatively similar. The acts that are relevant of such and apply to sentencing of young offenders include: Australia's youth justice system is based around the key principle that detention should be the last resort for young offenders. This concept is even more paramount when young offenders are facing mental health issues. This premise of keeping young offenders away from detention is reflected in the United Nations Convention on the Rights of the Child. This international treaty states that children should only be deprived of their liberty as a last resort and for the shortest appropriate time. The desire to deal with young offenders who make contact with the criminal justice system in a manner is a different manner to adult offenders. This is due to the specific challenge of a young person's brain still developing in ways that affect their impulse and their ability to choose between antisocial behaviour and socially acceptable courses of action. This issue is further compounded when a young person is suffering cognitive or mental health impairments or an emerging impairment. Due to a young person's brain still developing, the likelihood of rehabilitation is significantly higher. This capacity for rehabilitation, because of a young person's character not yet fully formed, has been described as a fundamental tenet of the juvenile justice system. When relating this factor to young people with mental health issues, their development of growing a sense of character is at a greater risk of being negatively impacted, and as evidence would suggest, the earlier intervention in relation to mental illness, the better the outcome for overall. Thus, the criminal justice system for young offenders needs to be structured in such a way that focuses on divisionary programs and support for young offenders to have a quicker and better chance of rehabilitating and being set on the right path. In 1993, the New South Wales Legislative Council Standing Committee on Social Issues released a report commonly referred to as the Juvenile Justice Advisory Council, Green Paper. This report highlighted the committee's concerns to the government with respect to the ad hoc and the non-specialist nature of psychiatric services provided to young offenders. Additionally, this report eliminated the limited resources available to young people with mental health problems in the criminal justice system and made recommendations for the youth justice system to include specialist mental health services, integrated service delivery, and screening of juveniles entering into custody. In response to the Green Paper, the government replied with a White Paper in 1999. This response paper signalled change for the infrastructure currently in place to deal with young offenders with mental health issues and referred to the importance of a coordinated and integrated response from relevant government departments, noting that a continuum of services is what these young people need.
Created using Powtoon.